What's going on, everyone? And thanks for tuning in to Ducks Digest, coming to you from beautiful Eugene, Oregon. I'm your host, Max Torres, publisher and lead editor of Ducks Digest on Fan Nation, part of the Sports Illustrated network. We're still getting going over at Ducks Digest with tons of awesome content, and we're working on expanding to YouTube for video, and here we are. Now we're on the podcasting scene as well. We're growing the team, and we have a lot of awesome stuff on the way with fall camp just a few short weeks away here in Eugene. Ducks getting ready to defend the Pac-12 title, and stuff's going on the recruiting trail as well, and I really can't tell you just how excited I am for what's to come. So just wanted to get that out of the way, and without further ado, this is the first episode of the Ducks Digest podcast. Let's run it.
They hand it off straight ahead for a touchdown. C.J. Verdell wins the game for Oregon. The Oregon Ducks are going to the Final Four.
Kenny Wayne's going to score! Kenny Wayne is going to score!
Oregon Ducks defeating the iconic, mighty United States women's national team.
All right, here we are back, ready to get into a bunch of awesome stuff. In this first episode, I want to talk about, a little bit of a personnel move that we saw for the Ducks here this week. Starting off, we're talking about Nick Toth. I hope I'm saying that right. Nick Toth. Mario Cristobal reportedly hired him. That's according to a report on footballscoop.com. Toth is the former UCF special teams coordinator. And I think this is a really big hire for Cristobal and the Ducks, just as they're trying to develop their defense a little bit. You know, it kind of dropped off last year after we saw it just absolutely dominate, really nationally, in the 2019 season under Andy Avalos. But I think this is really big. So Toth is supposed to be working with the outside linebackers. That's according to that footballscoop.com report. And I think this is really big. You know, he has a track record for forcing turnovers. When he was at Fresno State with Tim DeRuyter, the Ducks' new defensive coordinator, and he also spent some time at Texas A&M with DeRuyter to help develop Von Miller, who, as we know, is an NFL star now. And let's take it back real quick to Fresno State, right? You know, when Toth, I'm just going to go with Toth. When Toth took over in that first season at Fresno State, that is the 2012 season, they went from 9 takeaways, the Fresno State Bulldogs did in 2011, to 35 in 2012, which is just an unreal turnaround. And I think this is just really big because DeRuyter said in some of his introductory press conferences at Oregon that he wants his defense to prioritize forcing turnovers. Did some research before hopping on here, and the Ducks really didn't have the best turnover margin last year, to say the least. You know, if you followed this team, you knew that wasn't really a strong suit for them last year, where it was in 2019. Oregon had a -9 turnover ratio. This is according to stats from NCAA.com. And when you're looking at where that ranks, that is tied with Michigan State for 121st out of 127 college teams in the 2020 football season. So just way, way down from where you really need to be if you want to be, contending for national championships, which is what Mario Cristobal ultimately wants to be doing. Just to kind of put this into context, I said that 121 rank, but some other teams that are kind of relevant, I feel like, in this conversation. Ohio State, one of Oregon's first opponents this fall. Last season, they finished with a +10 turnover ratio. Same goes for Alabama, also +10. USC, looking like the biggest challenger for Oregon this season, had a +5, as well as Washington with a +5 turnover margin, and Arizona State +8. Say what you will with the investigation going on, but I mean, other than that, I feel like that team was really looking like they were heading in the right direction. So I think this is an awesome hire. It's just another example of how calculated Mario Cristobal has been from the jump when it comes to making hires. People, sometimes fans are like, oh, like everything's falling apart. We need to hire right this second, like now. And that's just not how Cristobal operates. He's going to, block out the outside noise. He's going to make calculated moves. He's going to vet people, bring in tons of people for interviews until he finds that right man. And I think that, Toth really fits the need here, especially with the youth that Oregon has on the outside following the Isaac Slade-Matautia transfer. I think that when you bring in a guy that has a track record like he does of, just really turning around defenses and making a positive impact, and someone who's worked with DeRuyter. I mean, now DeRuyter has 2 former coaches that he's worked with Marcel Yates helping out in the secondary coming over from Cal, DeRuyter's last stop. So just another awesome hire. I don't want to jump the gun here because obviously they haven't played a game yet under him, but, at least looking at the optics on the outside here, that's looking like another strong hire for the Ducks here. If you couldn't tell already, I'm solo for this, so I'm gonna take a couple quick drinks and little breaks here to keep myself going, sipping on a Snapple. If you've been listening to some podcasts here in the past, you know that I'm a fan of Snapple. I'm not sponsored yet. How cool would that be though if that was the first sponsor that we got? That would, on the Ducks Digest podcast, that'd be pretty cool. All right, so that's pretty much the biggest team news that we have of late. I was down at the opening at the beginning of July, and it was so fun, and I got to cover a lot of great stuff for SIL American, and I take a step away from Eugene and everything pops off. So I want to talk about this crazy commitment streak that we've seen the Ducks kind of going through here to start off July. And let's just start off with the biggest name, right? The one that everyone wants to hear about. Kelvin Banks, 5-star offensive lineman out of Texas, specifically the Houston area, I believe. This is just such a big addition for a variety of reasons. I talked to Banks multiple times throughout his recruitment. He had nothing but good things to say about the Ducks following his official visit here in Eugene. And I think it was a little bit of a challenge for the staff because I think the Ducks were the second visit that he made. I think it was LSU, Oregon, and then Oklahoma State was the next visit where he was formally committed to. He talked to me about kind of what he liked about Stillwater, kind of a laid back vibe. He loves doing outdoor stuff, fishing and what have you, and can certainly do that in Eugene. But going back to where he was initially pledged, OK State and Mike Gundy, maybe there was a little bit of a threat there for the Ducks as far as hey, let's just refresh you of why you fell in love with this place in the first place and initially committed, but went there, and then he had Texas, and then he finished everything off with Texas A&M, and both those Texas schools are just absolutely red hot on the recruiting trail. Steve Sarkisian entering his first year, the whole all gas, no brakes mantra is just really big right now. A lot of people, a lot of recruits are just super excited about that. He's set records for offensive production of all sorts at Alabama, and a lot of people are hopping in, and he's trying to put up as best as one can in the state of Texas, put up some fences to keep those people home. So yeah, big win over Texas, and then A&M with Jimbo Fisher. I think that they're right up there for teams that could break into the playoffs. I feel like A&M's really, really solid. At the time that Banks committed, the entire class of 2022 at A&M was all Texas kids, so it was definitely a big recruiting battle for the Ducks to win, and I think they just they outworked the competition. That daily communication from Cristobal and Mirabal, who really doesn't get enough credit as a recruiter, Mirabal that is. They just really stayed on him with that contact, created that genuine vibe that everybody gushes about when they leave Eugene. And here we go, another massive addition on the offensive line. Could potentially very well be the headliner in this 2022 class. So Kelvin Banks, we got him starting things off, and then we had Cameron Williams, another offensive lineman, this time from Duncanville in Texas, and he's even bigger than Kelvin Banks, who's a big dude in his own right. But Cameron Williams, I think he's rocking like 6'7", 340, 350 range. He came down to a final three of Oregon, Texas, and Oklahoma. I talked to him following his commitment. You can read that story on Ducks Digest. Came down to Oregon and Texas. And, Texas kind of got in the picture late. I believe they offered in around February, and, the Ducks were just there for the longest time. And, my guy Reed Tingley talked to Williams after his visit to Oregon, and he said, hey, they moved him up for sure. That visit did, it moved them up, I should say. And, you got to give credit to some of the other Oregon commits from the state of Texas. Before we hit this recent streak, you had Stephon Johnson from DeSoto, Texas. He's a wide receiver, just has all kinds of dope energy. He's just fun to watch. He's an electric guy. He's always dancing on social media and, celebrating, and just really an infectious energy kind of guy. He was on Cam Williams to try to get him to come to Oregon, as was Landon Holaby. Also from Texas. He's a safety that's riding with the Ducks in this 2022 class. So credit to them. And, with these two big offensive linemen, it's just Mario Cristobal is just, doing what he's done best. And, he's proving that he can make Oregon, not that it isn't already, but he's making it even more, if that's possible, a more attractive destination for, top offensive linemen. Come here, you'll be taken care of. He's got Alex Mirabal there, who we were talking to him in spring practice, and he was saying, I'm just his GA. He really runs the show. So you have some awesome developers of talent there. Cameron Williams, he's at Duncanville, like I mentioned, and that kind of gives you another inroad into Texas. If you get a guy from a big school like that, I believe they're ranked number 15 in the country for Max Prep's preseason national rankings. You get one kid, and if they have someone, the next year that Oregon's looking at, and it's like, hey, we had Williams last year, Cam's loving it up here, and it's really that easy. Not that easy, but you start that relationship and you can get those powerhouse pipelines, as I like to call them. I had a story out on that a while ago on Ducks Digest, but yeah, just starting those relationships and big time programs is just so big. And then staying in the state of Texas, again, we have wide receiver Nicholas Anderson. Chose Oregon over some schools like Notre Dame, USC, Penn State. Those are some of the visits that he took this summer. And the Ducks stay hot at wide receiver with another big addition like Anderson, who was recently highlighted on the SIL American watch list at receiver as one of the top wideouts in the country. To keep an eye on. And this was a commitment that I had no idea was coming. I mean, I knew he had the offer, but it just shows you again, all you got to do is get these kids on campus, and, that atmosphere at Oregon is just, second to none, especially with the success that they've had at wide receiver, and, the track record that Brian McClendon's had of developing guys is just huge. So I think that was, definitely something really big. I haven't been able to talk to Anderson yet, but he's a guy who's really polished, and he's a strong runner, big guy, 6'4", 195 out of Katy, Texas. So again, that Texas pipeline is just insane. And he's a guy who's going to fight for every yard. He's a good route runner, can track the ball really well, has some pretty good speed. I don't know if I'd say he's super dynamic. Like I don't think he's going to take the top off of the defense necessarily, but he's just a really well-rounded receiver, and you need that. You need to have your guy that's going to be Mr. Consistent. And I think we're just seeing a lot of great variety in this recruiting class so far at receiver particularly. And then moving along, we got two more guys to talk about. Isaiah Satania from Fayetteville, Arkansas. Originally a guy that's actually from Texas. So, just here we go, Texas again. I mean, it's one of the top 3 states in the country as far as, major college football talent. But he's doing his thing over in Fayetteville. And I mean, this is just a guy I'm so excited to get to Oregon. I wrote a piece about why he's the receiver that Oregon needs and really has needed for a number of years. That's not to say that the talent hasn't been there at receiver. I mean, you've just seen some big guys like Devin Williams, Micah Pittman coming to Oregon. Chris Hudson looks like he's going to be an absolute baller. We've seen him flash, but they haven't really had a pure speed guy like Satania since Devin Allen, who's a track guy like Satania. And I shouldn't say that Satania is a pure speed guy, but that's, his characteristic that I feel like is the most appealing to a lot of college coaches, because when you have a speed guy that can take the top off of a defense, it just forces you to plan, you make your game plan, in a totally different way. You got to be more conservative. It opens things up over the middle, and, his value is just I feel like you can't really overstate it. He's a dynamic guy that can, break tackles to a degree, shuck defenders off with stiff arms. He also adds added value in the kick return game as a special teamer. And this is another huge recruiting win because it came down to Oregon and USC. I mean, just think of how sour of a taste that would have left in the staff's mouth if he went to USC. I talked to him after he visited Oregon, and the track element was definitely at play. And there's no better place to be a track athlete than at Oregon. And he said, I'm a raw prospect. I feel like I really didn't think I could do something with football until maybe around 9th grade, so that's freshman year. He hasn't really been coached up individually like a lot of these other big-time receivers have, and McClendon has proven to be one of the best developers. He's got guys like Debo Samuel and Brian Edwards in the league. So, those just some of the factors that were at play for how Oregon won out. So he's another guy that I'm real excited to see in that green and yellow. And then the last commit I want to talk about is Michael Wooten out of Sierra Canyon. He visited with his teammate Kenji Swanson, who has since committed to Stanford. But Sierra Canyon, they're not just a basketball school. They have some big talent on the football field in their own right. And Wooten, after he visited, he talked to our Dylan Rubin King, and he told him, hey, we're gonna cut things down to 2 here. Actually, I think it was before he talked to Dylan, but it came down to Oregon and Colorado, is what I'm saying. And that's another Pac-12 recruiting win. I mean, maybe Colorado is a player that could have used him, was in a little bit more need of a player like him than Oregon per se. But this dude is just a mauler in the run game. Does a lot of his damage from the left tackle spot. But when I talked to him, he was saying, I could try to move things around a little bit if I need to. And he's just a great kid who's ready to work. And Oregon's offensive line class is quickly filling up. You got Banks, Cameron Williams, Wooten, as well as Percy Lewis from Mississippi Gulf Coast College, I believe, is the school he's at. I know it's a JUCO in Mississippi, but it might be escaping me just at this second. But yeah, things are really heating up there. Got names like Dave Yulee announcing shortly. He's a guy from Washington, one of the best offensive linemen on the West Coast. So absolute, catching fire on the recruiting trail, and kind of just want to keep moving right along here. We're going to talk about Jurion Dickey. He's a wide receiver from Valley Christian High School in San Jose. For those of you that don't know, I'm from San Jose, California originally, so Valley Christian is definitely a name that is familiar for me. And here we go. 2023 wide receiver, 6'2", 210. He had a video that made it on SportsCenter, their Instagram at least, where he was at the Routes versus Coverage showcase in Oakland. End of the game, just went up to absolutely moss a kid, and it was just super disgusting. Won the game. I talked to him about the play, about kind of what would have happened. He said if I didn't make that catch, we wouldn't have gone to the championship game. So a lot was on the line, and I think this is a guy that's been waiting for that Oregon offer for some time. He told me I grew up watching Oregon highlights before Pop Warner games. Watching DeAnthony Thomas, the whole nine. And he said that this offer, childhood goal accomplished, at least for now. But he's not satisfied. He's still looking for big offers. Washington's been talking to him. He's waiting for that offer, and he wants to see some schools from the South like Alabama, Clemson, LSU getting in the picture. But the Ducks recently offered him, so that was a really big one for him. Byron Marshall, a former Duck that also went to Valley Christian. We know what kind of special talent he was at Oregon. 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving. Obviously in separate seasons, but he was the first player in Pac-12 history to do that. And Jurion Dickey is he's just going to see his recruiting stock rise even more. He was one of the guys that I got to see at the opening, got to meet him, and he was just consistently one of the top performers despite being a 2023 guy going up against some of the top talent in the country. And I think that this is just big for the Ducks because you want to get in early on those 23 guys. Even though the 2022 class is popping off right now, you can't get complacent, and you got to keep working ahead. So if they can, keep on him, maybe close this one up earlier, you never know. And if you get him, you're getting another guy into that California pipeline, which has been very, very generous to the Ducks in recent cycles. All right, want to pick it up again with Dave Yulee. I mentioned him a little bit early in the pod, but he's a guy that he's looking pretty good. It's looking like it might be Oregon here, from kind of what we've seen and, our Dylan Rubenking's talked to him, and it's looking good for the Ducks as he eyes his decision on Saturday, July 17th. He's working from a top 5 of Oregon, Washington, USC, Cal, and Oklahoma. And, he told our Dylan Rubenking that he wanted to, kind of stay loyal to Washington. That's where he's from. He's from Puyallup. Washington's kind of been up and down, if you want to say, on the recruiting trail. They're definitely just not anywhere near the level that Oregon's at right now. They had, some time when Chris Peterson was there where they were, kind of hanging in there and, winning some of those recruiting battles. But I think that, if you're looking at the offensive line class for Oregon, Yulee could very well wrap it up and be kind of the bow on top of this class. You have another Pacific Northwest guy in Josh Connerly, who's in 2022. I think he's a 5-star, but he's another guy that the Ducks would certainly like to take. But if you can get Yulee, I mean, that's just another amazing class. He took a visit to USC as well as Cal this June in that month window that we had for visits. And I don't believe he visited UW recently. He might have gone to one of those spring practices. You'll have to fact check me on that one. But bottom line, decisions looming. Ducks are red hot. I can't bet against Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal for any of these top tier offensive linemen anymore. I can't. It wouldn't be smart to do so. So. I think that it's certainly looking good for Oregon, and we could see the Ducks climb again with another big commitment on Saturday. And then, moving right along here, the Ducks, like I just said, we have a lot of action at wide receiver recently. So, the way things go with recruiting, everyone's always saying, okay, we got him. What's next? It never stops. That's why it's so fun to follow. It's year-round, 24/7, 365. People want to know what's next at wide receiver, and I think that the biggest name, at least one of the biggest names, is Tetairoa McMillan, Servite wide receiver out of Anaheim. He was named the opening MVP. I got to talk to him a couple times when I was down there in LA, and the dude just put on a show. Super humble kid, really fluid in his movements, awesome body control. It's just a straight up playmaker. I'd say he's probably one of the best wide receivers on the West Coast in this 2022 class, and had a ton of offers, but has since narrowed down his decision to Oregon, USC, and Arizona. He's looking to make that decision before his senior season, so call it July or August. High school seasons usually start kind of late August time frame, and the Ducks are definitely in a good spot. I talked to him. He had really good things to say about Brian McClendon, and just the culture that Oregon's built. And even though Oregon hasn't been sending a lot of guys to the league at wide receiver of late, I don't think that's not gonna negatively impact them in this recruitment. I think that's one of the questions that I've started to kind of dig into a little bit more as I talk to recruits. Oregon has so much momentum right now, but when you're going up against a school like a USC, in this instance, which is really just a wide receiver factory, how does that kind of play in here? You have guys like Amon-Ra of St. Brown who just got drafted. You have Juju Smith-Schuster. So many big names in the NFL that went to USC, but I think the Ducks are in a great spot here. I'm working on an update for him coming up here in the next couple of days, but what it could come down to, we have Arizona as kind of a dark horse, but they're really in there, even though it's, the top 3 right now. His quarterback at Servite, I believe it's Noah Fifita, is committed there. And, they've been best friends for a while. I think he said that was his quarterback since 8th grade. So, the possibility of teaming up with your high school quarterback rather, certainly appealing when you're looking at your college decision. But, USC is trying to get him out there for an official visit. He took an unofficial semi recently, but I think, the official visit's really when a team is able to really lay out their red carpet treatment, right? It's a multiple day trip, even though he's already in Los Angeles, more or less. You can really pull out all the stops when you have him on campus for an extended period of time. They get to host with a player, kind of see what life is like at USC and in Los Angeles, and kind of, they get the pitch about, hey, you have all these opportunities if you come play for us and go to school here, connections in LA. So, I think as of right now, I would probably say Oregon leads, but this one is super tight. I mean, I can't front. It's a super tight race. I'm feeling relatively confident that he could end up at Oregon. He's a guy that you make room for no matter how tight your class is. He's the kind of talent that you need. And it looks like if they don't land him, they're going to end up, the Ducks that is, they're going to end up playing him at some point in Pac-12 play, whether it be in Tucson or Los Angeles. So keep an eye out on any news coming out about Tetairoa McMillan. Dude is an absolute gamer and certainly a huge priority for Oregon here moving forward. Just two more points here on the first episode of the Ducks Digest podcast. We got cornerback Ephesians Prysock. I believe that's how you say his name. He's at Bishop Alimani High School down in Southern California. And I think he's one of the Ducks' top priorities at corner right now. Still looking for their first cornerback in this 2022 class, which I believe is in the top 10 now. Certainly the top class in the Pac-12. And this run of commitments was really just a roaring answer to USC on the recruiting trail. But let's talk about Prysock. The Ducks recently have one of their other cornerback targets, Ben Morrison. He committed to Notre Dame on Thursday. And Notre Dame is, oh my God. I mean, Notre Dame is just absolutely killing it. I think I haven't checked the rankings today, but Ohio State, is still, I believe, the clear-cut number one. But Notre Dame's on a tear, especially after landing Jalen Sneed, who was another Oregon target. So Ducks kind of going head-to-head with Notre Dame in a couple of these. But Prysock is a guy that has, pretty legit interest in the Ducks. I was talking to him earlier today. He hasn't made it out to campus this summer just yet. Took an official to Ohio State, which has just done a really good job with defensive backs in recent years. Really, I mean, any position, and you name it, and they're sending guys to the league. So Ohio State's going to be a tough contender there. Loved that visit. His dad really liked that school. Still likes that school, and then also took an unofficial to USC. I mean, you kind of see it with all these LA guys, whether it be USC or UCLA, it's just a short trip up the road, and they can always make that. So, of course, I had good things to say about that, but Jonte Williams leading the way in that recruitment. He's looking like he's someone that Prysock told me that he's like, hey, he's a guy that can develop me. But talk about the Ducks here. The big news that I want to say is that he told me he's going to be taking an official visit to Oregon. I feel like it's kind of news that I would take with a grain of salt, because he said that he might even commit as soon as later this month here in July. But he wasn't totally sure because he hasn't taken all of his visits. So, this is a guy that the Ducks need to get on campus. He's a bigger defensive back at 6'3", around 180. I feel like you're seeing longer corners or defensive backs just dominate in college football now. And since the Ducks don't have a corner yet, they already have safety pretty much figured out with Holoby and Trajan Williams. They need to get things going at cornerback a little bit, especially if you have a guy that's looking at USC as well. So looks like he's going to be narrowing his schools here in the future. Not totally sure when, but Ducks are definitely in a good spot with Rod Chance leading the way. And Mario Cristobal also has a good relationship with Ephesians. Nothing but good things to say there. Likes his energy. Just the family vibe, kind of just the normal things that you see. But it's still worth mentioning here when we're talking about Prysock. So we're gonna see if he can, when he gets on campus, and kind of what happens with his recruitment. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about today, I don't know exactly what time we're at just yet, but don't want to go too long here on the first episode. Let's talk about Saturday Night Live. For people who are new to Oregon recruiting, or just Oregon football, whatever it may be, we got all kinds of listeners here. Saturday Night Live is, aside from the spring game, it is the single biggest recruiting event of the calendar year for the Ducks. This is that event where they try to bring in as many commits, as many top targets as they can. all to Eugene. You get to see them in person, shake their hand, see them play, take your measurements, which I think was one of the biggest, challenges of recruiting during the pandemic, is that you just couldn't see these guys in person. Does this guy really look like he's a legit 6 foot, or, is this lineman really 300 pounds? How does he move? How does he carry his weight? That's all things you can try to guess on a screen, but when you see that in person, I think it really leaves a different impression. But we're already seeing the Ducks working on getting some pretty big visitors. You got Cyrus Moss, one of the top defensive line edge, kind of hybrid linebacker targets for Oregon, playing out of Bishop Gorman. He announced that he's going to be back in Eugene. He took his first official, I believe it was, to Eugene, and just had a lot of great things to say. The Ducks staff got him on campus, and he was talking to one of the staffers saying, hey, I'm hoping to get a Jeep this summer, kind of summertime thing. And then they heard that and they took him on a Jeep ride, here on the trails around Eugene, beautiful outdoors in Oregon. I might be going on a little bit of a tangent here, but one thing I want to say, like, a lot of people, I think when you're looking at Eugene, it's not, maybe as attractive of a destination, you might say, as like a school or a town like USC, like Los Angeles. I can't talk. A town like Los Angeles, where USC is. So that's what I'm trying to say. A lot of the guys that I talk to, like, a big thing that they like about Eugene is all of the outdoor opportunities that they have. And, we see all these videos and photos on Oregon social media, of players just enjoying doing stuff outdoors year round. So I think that's kind of an underrated recruiting, element. So wanted to drop that there. But yeah, I think when you're looking at SNL, they didn't have it last year. It was looking like they, I was going to say it was looking like they could have recruits for the spring game, but that was never really in the conversation. It was looking like, because they were still the dead period, but it was looking like, the spring game was still going to be a pretty big event. Looks like they were going to have fans there. And then, we all know what happened with that, with the pandemic. I don't want to go into that. And it was just media. So what I was going to say is, the spring game is usually the biggest recruiting event of the year, but the fact that they didn't have Saturday Night Live, the fact that recruits were not able to come to Eugene for the spring game, I think it's leading to, just big things potentially coming from this Saturday Night Live camp. The fact that they didn't have it last year is just building the anticipation for it, and there's going to be guys there that the Oregon staff is maybe on the edge of, maybe offering, or maybe I just want to see this kid play. And if he wants to commit, then something could, once I see them play, then that answers all the questions that I have. And he's a guy that, turns into a take at that point. So a lot of big things coming here. A date that we've seen thrown out there on social media, but hasn't been confirmed yet, is July 31st for that Saturday Night Live camp. So we're kind of just going off of what we're seeing recruits saying. Just want to emphasize there's been no official announcement or, confirmation from Oregon that Saturday Night Live event is happening, but we're gonna act like it is, because recruiting never stops and recruiting is always huge. But I think that's it. We're gonna wrap up the first episode there. Touched on a lot of awesome stuff. Gonna give myself a shameless plug. If you guys want to find more of my work and more of my team's work, we got Dylan Rubin King and Reed Tingley doing awesome work over on ducksdigest.com. You can also head to si.com/college/Oregon, and that's where you can find us. That's our website. You can also follow me on Twitter at mtorressports. That's MTORRESSPORTS. I used to do that with Jacob Archer when we were wrapping up our pod. I knew how to spell my name, but words get hard. You know how it is. mtorressports on Twitter, mtorressports on Facebook. We got Ducks Digest Twitter at Ducks Digest. Same thing goes for Facebook. But yeah, really excited to get this thing going. Hoping to be pretty consistent with these podcasts once I get my setup all figured out. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.